Republicans Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene are calling for a congressional sexual slush fund list to be released. They're referring to a secret list of former and current lawmakers who have settled sexual harassment claims with taxpayer dollars. Massie took to X last week and wrote, "Congress has secretly paid out more than $17 million of your money to quietly settle charges of harassment, sexual and other forms, in congressional offices. Don't you think we should release the names of the representatives?" "I do." Greene responded to Massie, writing, "Yes, I want to release the Congressional Sexual Slush Fund list. Taxpayers should have never had to pay for that, along with all the other garbage they should not pay for."
The Office of Congressional Workplace Rights has settled nearly 300 claims that encompass disputes over sexual harassment, retaliation, discrimination, and pay. And as Massie said, they have indeed used more than 17 million taxpayer dollars in the process. Back in 2017, the office told Politico that a large number of the cases are not related to complaints within Congress itself. Many of them come from employees of the Library of Congress, the architect of the Capitol, and Capitol Police. Still, former Republican Congressman Mo Brooks of Florida also voiced his support for Massie's call. Brooks tweeting, "Taxpayer dollars must never be used to secretly bail out sexual and other harassers. A Capitol Hill harassing supervisor should foot the bill. That stops harassment."
This comes on the heels of the House releasing a report earlier this month that Matt Gaetz alleged in sexual misconduct and drug use. So I'm a big fan, obviously, of Thomas Massie, and this kind of sounds like a no-brainer to have greater transparency around the government paying victims who've alleged sexual harassment complaints of members of Congress, and you can probably make the case for their staff as well. I mean, this is public dollars being spent, so it's not like it's a private matter when it's our money. Now, that said, not all accusations of sexual harassment are true, and sometimes people, when they have their own money, would rather settle it, not without admitting guilt or thinking you're totally made this up, but it's less. It'll be less of a hassle for me to just pay you off. That does happen. Just because someone says something doesn't mean it's true. Doesn't mean it's false either. So I would not automatically say that every one of these claims has merit without knowing the underlying circumstances. But it's our money, so yeah, we can know at the end of the day.
No, it is. I mean, if public money is being spent by former or current public representatives to settle sexual harassment claims or the other kind of claims that are outlined here, that seems obviously in the public interest to know. To your point, knowing who paid out those claims does not automatically render a verdict of guilt upon that person, and these are civil matters, and they are not matters that have gone before criminal courts, and so obviously, I mean, the offences are wrong if they were committed. The settlement has been made with public money. It seems just obvious that there should be, I think, acknowledgement or greater transparency, as you said. It's also interesting, this office hits the headlines, it seems like, every few years. And one of the issues that cuts across party lines here when it comes to transparency is, a few years back, Jackie Speier, a now former Democratic Congresswoman from California, argued for transparency on the basis that that transparency would be a warning, in a way, to people who were going to work in particular congressional offices or for particular members of Congress. Maybe one claim is, spurious or whatever, but if you're applying for a job in an office that has 3 claims against it, you might think twice about that, and that's a valid point too, it seems.
Interestingly enough, one of the most obvious examples of sexual harassment being alleged and, in my view, probably very likely committed, would not have been disclosed under this office because it was not settled by this office. This is according to the New York Post. John Conyers, a longtime Michigan representative who has subsequently passed away and had a settlement with a staffer who alleged all sorts of explicit overtures and had to be involved in covering up all of his affairs and was, propositioned and all of that sort of thing. Again, that's what she alleges. It seems like there's a lot of supporting and circumstantial, albeit evidence to back up that claim, that wouldn't have been included here because it wasn't handled by that office.
Right, and I think it was settled by Conyers with his own funds.
Right.
So that is a somewhat different case in that respect. I do think, in the interest of fairness, we have to reiterate the fact that not all this money is spent in settlement of sexual harassment claims. There are pay discrimination claims, retaliation claims, and all of that. And it's over quite a long period of time. This 17 million figure dates back to 1997. Nonetheless, one thing that perplexed me when I was looking into this was I don't fully understand why public money is used for it at all. I mean, obviously the people are public representatives, and if it's, I mean, it does, I guess, get different when it becomes things like the Capitol Police, who are, it's obviously a public group. But if it is a congressman or a staff member, what is the actual logical justification for using public money? And I have not seen the rationale for it listed anywhere.
Well, is it? That's a good question. I mean, is it the case? Let's say in a private corporation, if you bring a, I guess if you bring if it's a workplace thing, you're not necessarily bringing it against the person. If you bring a sexually hostile workplace environment, you're not actually bringing a claim against an individual. You're bringing it against the organization, and the organization has to pay its resources. So if it's a public organization, well, then they're just by their very nature spending the public dollars on that. So I wonder, but although this is describing actions brought against individuals. So
as I understand,
why are they not just paying their own way to bring such a...
That part of it strikes me as peculiar. But, Thomas Massie, I think, has done good work. He's normally a person who you agree with a lot more than I do. But I think that the case for public transparency here seems very difficult to push back against. It seems kind of...
Although it is a workplace, because sexual harassment itself is not a... I mean, it's not, the police aren't going to arrest, sexual violence or aggression.
Right, or an act.
Yes,
an act
but it usually corresponds to trying to extort some favor in an educational environment or a workplace environment, making it an issue of the company.
Maybe it is a workplace settlement. Maybe that is the issue. Interestingly, some Republicans have been reported to be drafting a resolution that would actually make this happen. Would bring forth the names of certainly any current or former members of Congress of whom this is true. We'll see if that goes anywhere. But it's really an interesting story. It's not purely a salacious one at all. There's a lot of real substance to this, I think.
Yes, indeed. Stick around. More Rising right after this.